Hey everyone, Andrew with It Takes Two Takes, here to talk about a show that I feel like nobody I know is really talking about. So I just wanted to share my thoughts. That show is Mythic Quest. Now, I recently talked about Ted Lasso. I appreciate everyone that's been jumping in there and commenting on how great that show is. I agree. And I'm not an Apple TV Plus shill. It's not that. It's just that happens to be the streaming service that has content that I don't know many people are watching, at least me personally. Why am I here talking about Mythic Quest? For starters, if you are a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you've got Rob McElhenney in this. Mac. He's essentially writing, he's directing some episodes, he's starring in it. The humor is very similar. It's not quite the same. We'll get to that in a second. You've also got Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So right then and there, if you're a fan of that show, I highly recommend you check out Mythic Quest. You could almost stop this video and maybe just that's enough for you. But if it's not, I'm going to keep going. Mythic Quest, quite simply, is a workplace comedy. And I don't mean to oversimplify it and call it that, but at its basic core, that's what it is. You have these characters within a video game studio that is trying to capitalize on the booming success of their game, an MMORPG, which is where the series gets its very awkward name from for a television series. But okay. The game of Mythic Quest in the show is credited to its visionary creator, played by Rob McElhenney, Ian Grimm. Ian is completely full of himself, which of course is a great vehicle for Rob McElhenney to really just flex his comedic chops. He fits right in, much like the sort of narcissistic behavior of every character in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Ian just looks at the world through his own lens and doesn't really consider other people, at least early on. He's surrounded by testers, by programmers, a wiry executive producer played by David Hornsby, again, Cricket from Sunny, a head writer who is essentially a failed fantasy novelist played by the great F. Murray Abraham. You've even got sort of a marketing role with head of monetization played by Danny Pudi, for those of you that are big fans of Community, Abed, in this series as well. All of these characters have their quirks, and there's a lot of conflict to be had, of course, but more on that in a bit. I do feel like the tech industry, or more specifically the gaming industry, doesn't have a lot of representation in terms of fictional movies and television show that are quality, that sort of deserve a broader audience, I guess you could say. Even with that said, nearly anyone could just jump into this show, regardless of the sort of jargon, the acronyms, and the references that they make to the gaming industry. You don't lose too much of the experience if you're not completely in tune with those references, with that commentary. But anyone that is into the gaming industry, or even the tech industry, people that like Silicon Valley, for instance, the show, they're going to find a lot of things that they enjoy in this. And it does reward its viewers for having some awareness of that world in that environment. As funny as the show is, right when you start it, it does sort of predictably, or at least you immediately recognize that it's towing the line of sort of the workplace comedy genre. And there are concerns I had, at least early on, that it might get a little stale in that regard from a plot standpoint or a character investment standpoint. Well, the humor is certainly there. I mean, there's a lot of great banter. It's witty. It's fast-paced as far as the way the conversations of the characters go. Again, it did remind me a lot of Sunny, the way that they would sort of just roast one another about various things and just throw out commentary and observations about one another in sort of a shallow way. So I know I keep referencing Sunny, but the difference here is that unlike Sunny, Mythic Quest, it does dabble in character and heart, and that becomes more apparent as this first season, at least, moves forward. I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, but there's a noticeable shift that comes when episode 5 arrives in the first season. It almost is sort of a bottle episode, for lack of a better way of putting it. It is definitely a massive departure from what you believe the show is setting out to be within the first 4 episodes. That episode just proved to me that Mythic Quest was willing to take risks, and emotionally it's a bit of a gut punch that you just don't expect. Look, I don't think I can overstate how important episode 5 is. If you start this show and you get to episode 5, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, especially as you move forward, and if it changes your perspective like it did with me. And while technically episode 9 is the finale of Mythic Quest, there is an episode 10 that I would consider the true finale. I mean, it was really when lockdown was occurring during the pandemic in 2020. They regrouped and did this sort of quarantine special, but it provided the most closure, I think, than anything else could have. I highly encourage you watch it as a complete season by including that special episode 10 with the overall season. Listen, the show is far from perfect, I'll admit that. And while I praised Ted Lasso in my previous review for just coming out of the gate strong, right off the bat, in my opinion, Mythic Quest doesn't quite do that, but that's okay. It kind of has an added charm to it because it is trying to find its identity in a way, and it's willing to take risks to get there. And those risks, for the most part, pay off, and it's certainly entertaining as a viewer. Season 2 has already started. I've begun watching that. There's more episodes ahead because it's a weekly format. I'm not going to get into Season 2. I would just say that Mythic Quest is... It's a hidden gem. To me, I honestly don't understand why people aren't talking about Mythic Quest more. Like, I've recommended the show to friends of mine and nobody has gotten around to watching it. In fact, one of my friends texted me the other day and goes, "Why didn't you tell me there was a show with Mac and Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in a video game industry environment? Comedy." I did, Jeremy, okay? Jer Bear. You recommend a show and you say, oh, it's on Apple TV Plus, and that seems to be the I'll get around to it streaming service, which, look, I have no opinion about Apple TV Plus. I have an opinion about this show and that it's great, and you should be watching it if you haven't. And if you have, let me know what you think. Do you agree, disagree? Let's get some comments going, because I feel like I'm putting myself out there about a show that it's not like it's the best show I've ever seen. It's just probably one of the better shows that no one has seen. Let me know what you think. Appreciate you watching as always. And give me some other recommendations. I'll talk about it. Why not? I'm just sitting in my basement. What am I supposed to be doing? Watching Apple TV Plus shows. And I promise you they're not paying me to do this. No one's watching it except for me, apparently. I don't even own an iPhone. What do you want? Okay. All right. We'll see ya. Thanks.